Hello, and welcome to the From the Top interview series and podcast. I'm joined today by Ed Wallace, Managing Director at Achieve Next, and also international speaker and author. Ed, thanks for being here today.
You're welcome. It's great to be with you, Mike, and your audience. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So maybe just quick, do an introduction, a little bit of your background.
How much time do you have, Mike? Uh, no, I'm a CPA in recovery. Hope that's okay to say on your podcast.
Yeah.
And part of that process was I took a job in sales with a small company in the Philly area years ago called Vertex, and I worked my way up at Vertex. Along the way, I was lucky to be exposed to all the different leadership programs, the Coveys, the Blanchards,
Mm.
all those great programs, the solution selling. And I started thinking, I'd like to do this someday. So, but I rise up to be VP of sales, and you got small kids, you know the drill. So you're like, yeah, I'm never going to do it. And then on August 26, 2005, my 8-year-old fell off the skateboard
Oh,
without a helmet on, got medevac to Children's Hospital
oh my
in Philly
goodness.
with my wife. Real traumatic weekend. As my older son Brett and I are coming down the stairway, the cascading stairs at the Children's Hospital here in Philly, there's a woman looking for us at the bottom of the stairs, and she looks up and she goes, "Are you Ed Wallace?" And you couldn't imagine what's going through my head, that they send somebody to find me. And I said yes, and she said, "I came to find you, to let you know Grant is doing great, and I came to locate you so we can take you. I can take you where we take our helicopter parents." And hearing that just kind of took all the edge off. Besides, the Grant was fun. So that was a very cathartic weekend for our whole family. And I
Yeah.
started thinking, okay, what am I going to actually do? What I really want to do in life when I grow up? And I went to the CEO of Vertex and said, "Hey, you know what? I want to quit. I need you to fire me so I can get my severance because I was a senior executive. How can I fire you? What are the grounds?" We went around and around for 6 months. He's still a great friend of mine to this day. Anyway, eventually he succumbed. And I started thinking about how can I bring those good intentions to sales,
Hmm.
because sales are stereotyped. Salespeople are stereotyped. And and from there, I started writing books on business relationships. The principle of worthy intent was really key to that whole thing. And we've trained about 30 some thousand people now. I just came back from a speech in Nashville. I'll be going to Ireland this year. So everything I kind of envisioned actually happened. It just took me 18 years for our company to be an overnight success.
Yeah. That's usually how overnight success works, right? Love it. That's
Takes a long
great.
time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that background. So maybe let's dive into the speaking part of it and how that works with your company and what role when you give these, talks, how does that kind of work with your business and help your business?
Well, as running your own practice there, Mike, if you can get in front of a crowd of people and your message is on point, not
Mhm.
only will you get paid for that message, but you're probably going to wind up having people approach you. So I started talking to Rotary clubs, and they didn't have any money to spend on speakers, but I honed my
Right.
skill, and over time now I get a pretty nice honorarium, as they call it, when I give a keynote or I do breakouts. We are at the World of Asphalt. So a big focus of our business is construction and manufacturing. They have sales teams that have to build long-term relationships with customers, with prospects, and we help them with that. And this was like a giant conference in Nashville, and both of my breakout sessions were sold out. They turned people away. They didn't know me yet, but it was the topic of business relationships, and everybody's trying to figure that out, because if you think about the world today, everything can be commoditized, digitized, or outsourced, except for relationships. It's the one thing that we actually have a bit of control and influence over.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, speaking to groups is super powerful.
Yep.
I think it's great to you get to they get to know a little bit about you when you're up there speaking. You kind of, especially as I'm sure you do, have a very authentic way of speaking, and you're getting to know, they're getting to know you because you're being authentic, you're vulnerable on stage, obviously sharing good information. That's great. And so maybe share a little bit about your philosophy around business relationships.
Well, my philosophy starts with the taxi cab driver. Excuse me. His name was Max. And when I was struggling at sales, and my father had just passed away in the early '90s, Max showed up and in a London taxi outside of our little townhouse. And I learned that the most important thing is to be curious, ask great questions, and never forget about the little things about that person that are so important. So after the first pickup, he realized the cab driver can't ring the bell because we had an infant, we had an infant son. So he always remembered after one ride with me at a full schedule, 2 3 weeks later he came back and knocked and just gently tapped and he remembered. So um, I had these Max stories inside of me for all these years. And then when Grant fell, I'm like, I'm gonna write that book and I'm going to do this thing. And I can always go back into sales. You lie to yourself so you can actually rationalize this crazy thing you're doing. And
Mhm.
one of your questions on background was, so when you're starting a business, what should you expect? Expect to
Yeah.
spend twice as much money, and for decisions from customers to take 3 times as long. Okay, so those are two things for your audience to expect.
Yep, yep, absolutely. I love it. Yeah. And I think you're so right about the little things. I'm just going to be coming out with my first book soon, and
Nice. Congratulations.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's called The Self-Fulfilling Formula. But really, the self-fulfilling formula in my mind has three components: mental fitness, social fitness, and execution fitness. And you're
Mm,
zoning right in on that whole idea that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, which is that social fitness. How do you start, create, and maintain meaningful relationships? And it's super, super important. So I love that. I just love
well,
that.
and,
Great.
and your point about the book is so powerful because the cab driver drove a London taxi in the Philly suburbs here. He distinguished himself right off the bat. When you go into a client or potential client and you hand them your book, you're immediately an expert. So the entrepreneurs in your audience, Mike, if they can find a way to publish or to have something on LinkedIn that says you're an authority, I think that's a really good start. I mean, we still use our books as business cards. If we have a sales team here now and everything, and they'll engage, and then they'll say, why don't I have Ed sign a book and send it to you? And we've got other facilitators and all, but they always kind of want to talk to the guy, right?
Mhm.
We just did a program for Boar's Head in Florida yesterday. I didn't deliver it; one of my facilitators delivered it, but it was all based on a book that I wrote.
Right.
So my advice for uh, you know uh, anyone starting off some kind of consulting firm is it's so easy to get a book done today. There are all kinds of services. You
Yeah.
don't have to go through a publishing house. Nobody's reading the publisher on the binding of your book. In most
Yeah.
cases, they're just like, "Hey, Mike wrote a book. Mike must be pretty darn smart."
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like you're saying, it's easy to get that together, especially considering how much we do write today. We're on social media, we're creating documents for our companies. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, to all the entrepreneurs out there, you'd be surprised at the content you already have. It's just a matter of putting it together,
Yep.
making a cohesive thought. So great advice there. And I think too. This idea of, and I know a lot of my guests on this podcast, when we talk about entrepreneurship, it's about taking that leap, and I know as we were talking before we got started here, and some of the stories you're saying, you realize uh, I'm at the point where I'm just going to give it a try. I'm just going to go for it, like you did when you left Vertex. Super important.
I don't think everyone should go through a trauma to do it like we did.
Right,
I
right.
think it'd be great if you just there's a, if you're a very competent and confident person, which anyone who's thinking about being an entrepreneur has to be, then you'll figure it out. You'll have the moxie to figure the whole thing out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So maybe just shifting a little bit, to the extent you're comfortable, what's coming up for you? What are the things you're looking forward to over the next year or so? What's on the roadmap there for you?
Well, we in the last 3 or 4 years, it's interesting. We grew during the pandemic. We
Mm,
had done nothing but in-person learning and development and sales training. And then the pandemic hit, and we didn't lose one customer. In fact, our top line grew to the point now where we have a sales team and we've got other practices here. And I brought in a millennial, 35 years old, to be president of the company.
mhm.
So I no longer have to worry about that stuff. I'm having a ball at my age right now in going out, giving speeches, stirring up opportunities for the business, going out. I'm going next week to Long Island. We it's interesting, and you don't have to have a giant office. I mean, for 10 years, I worked out of my basement, had Dow Chemical, SAP, Iron Mountain as clients. You don't have to have a beautiful office and spend all that money.
Mhm.
Have a place you're comfortable in, and just get out of it every day. That's the other thing, right? Join a
Yeah,
board, go to conferences, try to get on panels if you're not a keynote speaker, or do breakout sessions. Get to the associations for the space that you're trying to consult or coach in. We found a niche in manufacturing and distribution, construction, and insurance. So everything we do is positioned for those spaces. Every conference we attend is positioned for those spaces. And our language, our marketing all speaks
right.
that language. So that is, I think, the biggest challenge for somebody starting out is we go to everybody. And I was going to everybody. And now that we've refined it,
Right.
the growth curve really ramps up.
That's fantastic.
What
Yeah.
am I going to be doing? I'm not going to be running the company anymore. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to have a good time doing things like this and delivering keynotes. And I love to travel. And I travel almost every week. So I'm at a great point,
There you go.
thankfully.
You reached that nirvana state, right? Where you got, you moved from a job to a real business, and that gave you some freedom, which I think is something that, again, for entrepreneurship, it's like that's where you want to get to. Now, like you
Yeah,
said, you're gonna have to work, and you're gonna have to spend a lot, but
yeah.
I think the journey is worth it.
And it happens like you don't recognize, like when all of a sudden you don't have to get babysitters for your kids anymore. It just kind of happens, and you're like, oh, we could just go out now. I think it's the same thing with this. I mean, all of a sudden it's like, there's money in the checking account. Oh, we can do this now. We can go to this. It just kind of happens, and you know, people that like, know, and trust you send you POs every year to keep working with them.
Right.
So I think there, there's an aha, but it kind of happens like gradually.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You cross the threshold, but you don't see when it happens. You only
Yeah,
know when you look
yeah.
back. Absolutely. Love that. So I'll throw this question out to you. I always ask it, reach that point in the interview where I ask my question. So if you could wave a magic wand over any area of your business and have any result you want, what would that be and why?
Well, I've already got my son working in the business, so that would have been a magical thing.
There
I've
you
got
go.
my successor working in the business who is not my son. My son's too young to be the successor. So I've got a legacy. Um, I would only do keynote speeches.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I wouldn't do we have like multi-month training programs with customers. I would only kick those off and do keynote speeches. That would be nirvana for me. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the vision, but
Yeah.
we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
Well, that makes sense, and I'm sure you will get there. So as we kind of draw down here, just like to also end with any additional advice that you can give an entrepreneur who's out there, either thinking about getting into it or already started their journey.
Go to every meeting. Like even the meetings that you're like, oh, why am I meeting with this person today? go to every meeting, I wanted to write I wrote 4 books. I wanted to write a 5th book. It takes 100 meetings.
Mm,
So I think the advice is until you've had your 100th meeting, you're not really going to be sure whether what you're doing is going to be market ready or acceptable by the market. And the other kind of tangent to that is, do you want a business or a practice?
mm,
So are you going to be a single shingle, which is wonderful, right? You can make a lot of money, have a wonderful lifestyle. Or do you want employees or contractors, space? Um, I kind of morphed into a business. I really
mhm.
just wanted the first thing, but you need people to support your data. You need people to support your assessments. You need all that stuff. So, but my original vision was, hey, I can do this, and I never called it Ed Wallace. I called it Relational Capital Group. It's now Achieve Next.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so I hope those are 2 nice little tidbits.
I love it. I love the 100 meetings. That's great.
Yeah,
You should write that 5th book.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
says you know what it takes to write a book, right? When is
I
your
do.
book coming out? When is your book coming out?
It's available for pre-order now, and it'll be released in mid-June. So
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
just finishing up some of the final touches on it, and it's almost ready to go.
I'll get a
Um,
copy. Thank you.
oh, absolutely,
No,
absolutely.
I didn't mean for you
Well,
to send me one. Oh, thanks for sharing that. I'll buy a
oh,
copy. I'll put
even
stars out
better.
there
I'll
for you.
take it.
I'll put stars out there for you. 5 stars.
Awesome. Well, Ed, this was just a great conversation. Really appreciate you taking some time to come on the show, share your insights. So many great nuggets in there. I love the 100 meeting thing. That's just awesome. So, just thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Thanks, Mike. Great being with you. Take care.
Yeah, and to everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode.